Good morning. Happy Women in Translation Month. For those of you who are new and haven't seen my last video, August is the month of Women in Translation. And for my reading vlogs for this month, that is what I will be focusing on. So the very first book that I actually decided to pick up for Women in Translation is We Were Forbidden by Jacqueline Hartman. She is a Belgian writer and her work is translated from French into English. If her name sounds familiar, she is the author of I Who Have Never Known Men. I've already read I Who Have Never Known Men and I really liked it. And this book is actually a collection of the very first novellas that she's ever written, but it's finally getting translated. I'm assuming due to the success of I Who Have Never Known Men, the rest of her work has been able to get translated. And that's really exciting. So as I mentioned, this is a book of 3 novellas, and I've already read the first one, I'm assuming the namesake of the titular short story of the actual collection. The blurb in the back describes it as, in the wake of unfathomable war, a woman wanders the forest. She and her fellow survivors are forbidden from leaving its boundaries or pausing in the eternal march through its strange depths. And I really found that story very interesting. It was very captivating. It was very mysterious. The intrigue was there from the very beginning. If you were ever curious on reading I Who Have Ever Known Men, but have heard the divided takes on it, some people like it, some people don't, I think you should pick up this novella and read that short story, because it's kind of literally the same thing in the sense of like a dystopian world, and these group of people don't know what's going on anymore. They are literally just confined towards each other, only know about each other, and don't know what's going on in the outside world. In this case, it's these soldiers that are dedicated to their duty of staying within the forest, even though they don't even know if the war is still going on. So I found that very interesting. I feel like the ending really is similar to I Who Have Never Known Men, but a little more satisfying in my opinion. So again, if you want to have a taste of what that book is, then I think you should probably pick these up first, and you'll definitely understand what you're getting into when you finally pick up I Who Have Never Known Men. I hope that makes sense. I could have read this all day yesterday. I was just, a meeting was about to start, and then I just decided to take care of my other responsibilities around the house. So now I am hopefully going to finish this right now in this sitting. But I am in the middle of the second novella. It's called The Outcast, and I'm finding it very entertaining, very interesting so far. The teenage girl is essentially the only Jewish girl in a school that was in Casablanca while it was still run by Nazis, and then it does eventually transfer over to the Allies. So she is going to school during that, and so she is essentially getting punished whenever she talks about her political beliefs, as it mentions in the blurb. So this one's getting really interesting, and I'm really excited to finish it. And this short story, according to the translator's notes, is actually autobiographical. This short story is actually autobiographical, so that's very interesting that she is actually the one dealing with all of this. So I'm excited to finish it. I'm excited to get to the third short story, which is about a woman who is locked in a loveless marriage in the Belgian bourgeoisie. She satisfies her husband's desires twice weekly as required. She has not yet thought to pursue her own. That one sounds very interesting to me specifically, and it's also the longest novella in here, so I'm excited to dive into that one. So that is what I'll be reading for right now. I do have my next read, so stay tuned for that. I'll show it to you later. And yeah, let's get to reading.
The feeling of what you did to me with them, and me not having a social media presence and having the entire internet against me. I literally will never forget. It was like, there was a good 3 days.
Hi, good morning. I am officially done with We Were Forbidden by Jacqueline Hartman, and I actually really liked it. These short novellas definitely had more going on. I think they were a little bit more fast paced and a little bit more interesting. No, I mean, I personally did like I Who Have Never Known Men, but there was definitely more going on in these stories. Completely different. I feel like the closest thing that we got to I Who Have Never Known Men was the first story, as I mentioned earlier. And the other two were just completely different, but very, very well written. I really liked it. The second story, I think I did mention this in my last update, is autobiographical and it's about a young teenager. I think they're 15 years old, and she basically gets punished for having the different kinds of political views during World War II and during the original Nazi occupation of Morocco, and then switching to the Allied occupation of Morocco, Casablanca. And that was a very interesting read, especially because her adversary, I guess, in the story is another teenage girl who is basically just a teenage girl with her own political beliefs. Wrong. I agree with the narrator. They're wrong. But there's obviously a lot more nuance to it. And towards the ending of the story, the narrator asks, was she being punished because she very bravely expressed the political beliefs that the rest of the school also believed in, but they couldn't express it because they were put in this position of authority run by the government. So they needed to remain as neutral as possible. That was a very interesting take, and I very much enjoyed that read. Also, what I really liked about all three stories, before I move on to the third one, is that they are all from the point of view of an older narrator in retrospect. Like, they're remembering how things are happening and everything. And I think that gives it a different kind of like perspective as well, as opposed to going through the events within the young character's mind. Like I said, I think that's really interesting. And the third story was very wild, in my opinion. It definitely had a completely different tone. It's basically about a woman who finally decides to take care of herself by engaging in an affair. A married woman engaging in an affair. And throughout the story, the narrator is constantly creating and working through two different stories. So the one that we're reading as an audience is constantly interrupting the story that the narrator is telling us with their own experience. It's like three different characters simultaneously telling us their own story, but the other two characters are written by the original narrator. It was very weird. It was very confusing, but very entertaining at the same time, because they're essentially, all three characters are women just trying to live their best life with the hand that they were dealt with in terms of love, basically. I would say I think the third story and the second story are my favorite of the three, but all three were just very much worth reading. They were all very entertaining, and I really I really liked this collection. I'm glad that they were finally translated into English and I was able to read it. I'm very excited and I'm very happy. The next book that I'm going to read is The Unworthy by Agustina Basterica, and this is translated from Spanish to English, and I think our author is Argentinian. This is a horror novel, so I'm excited to get back to the spooky elements since it is still summer and I didn't really have a good summer ween. I'm hoping that this makes up for it, I guess. And this is basically just about a nun in a convent. A lower member of the Sacred Sisterhood, deemed an unworthy, our main character dreams of ascending to the ranks of the enlightened at the center of the convent and of pleasing the forbidding superior sister. But when a strange newcomer joins the ranks of the unworthy, the narrator is forced to consider her long buried past. As she grows closer to the newcomer, she is increasingly haunted by questions that she can no longer ignore. How did she get to the Sacred Sisterhood? Why can't she remember her life before? And what really happens when a woman is chosen to be enlightened? So I think not only is this going to be spooky, I think it's going to also just be like really weird, and I'm excited for it. I did also want to say that if you have seen my TBR video, I had mentioned that I had a collection of short stories by Clarice Lispector, and I'm no longer going to read that this month. I'm not a big fan of short story collections. I'm not a big fan of short stories, so when I do read them, I like to just do that in my own pace. And I found two other books that I am replacing that with because I honestly completely forgot that I actually had these books. So I'm going to add these to my list, basically, is what I'm trying to say. The first book that I am now integrating into my list is When I Sing Mountains Dance by Irene Sola. And this is translated from Catalan to English, which is a dialect of Spain, a different kind of Spanish from European Spain. I remember I tried reading this a couple of years back, but I wasn't really in the mood for it, I guess, when I picked it up. But I didn't want to give it away just yet, so I am giving it a second chance. This is a second chance novel. If I remember correctly, yeah, this was a really weird book. It has really weird narrative going on, as you can see. There's pictures, there's poems, I think, in here. I'm actually excited to get to it again and see if it's something that I do want to read. And if not, I might actually DNF it again. And the second book, I'm upset that I forgot about this book. This is Lost Souls Meet Under the Full Moon by Mizuki, who is Japanese. So this is Japanese into English. And she is the author of Castle in the Mirror, and I really, really loved that novel. I thought it was so beautifully written, and it was such a beautiful story of found family and friendship and magical realism. And I was very excited when I found out that she came out with a second novel, and I just read that this one is a duology. So I'm excited. I'm hoping that I really like this. I want to do research on when the other book comes out because it did say 2026, but I don't know if that's now in July and it's already out, or if it's late 2026 so that I can get it. These will be read in the near future, and I'm excited about that. But for right now, my focus is The Unworthy, and I'll see you guys in the next reading update. Hi, hello, welcome back. I have some book updates. I picked up and finished The Unworthy by Agustina Basterica, which is translated from Spanish to English. And while I was reading it, I'm not gonna lie, there were a lot of moments that I wanted to DNF it, but I didn't. I stuck through it. This is from the same author that wrote Tender is the Flesh, and from what I am aware of, Tender is the Flesh is very gruesome and like gory and disgusting, and that's kind of horror. And from my understanding, this was gonna be along the same lines, just no, like, I think cannibalism and animals and everything like that. So when I was like getting into it, 10 pages in, 20 pages in, I kind of wanted to roll my eyes because it really just sounded like an edgelord. Is that what they're called? Like an edgy, like, ooh, I love pain. I want to see her suffer. I want to see them bleed type things that were going on, and I really just wanted to roll my eyes. So in my opinion, this book did start getting better as like the revelations started happening, when the character finally started getting into her background and where she came from. So this book is basically about a woman in a convent, the sisterhood. What's it called? They're called the Sacred Sisterhood, and within the convent, there's like different hierarchies of sisters, and they all serve a different purpose. But you do find out later that they're not serving the Christian God. They are serving some other god. And what I kind of found annoying is that every time they talk about like the Christian God, not the one that they worship, but like the old God is what it's called. They call him the false son, the erroneous God, and then they call Mary the negative mother. That to me, that just really sounded very like edgelord, like, ooh, we're so different type situation. I don't know, I rolled my eyes at it because like every time they mention God, yeah, they call him the false son, the erroneous God of the negative mother, or just always saying that train of thought together. So yeah, so it's very edgelord, very like, ooh, I'm so dark, I'm so twisted. But things do get better when you find out the backstory of our main character. You also find out that this convent is run by a man, and he doesn't have a name or anything like that. He is always referred to as he with a capital H, and then they have their own god that he speaks for, essentially, I guess. And I guess some spoiler alert, I knew that was going to be something in itself, right? Like convents and monasteries have always been a thing. They've always, monks are technically above sisters, I think, because of the patriarchy and everything like that. I just knew that there was going to be something. As soon as they said that there's a he involved in this, a red flag went up, red light warning throughout the entire book. And sure enough, right? The second half of the book, what did pick up, the plot twists were very interesting, and I really liked it. This is, long story short, this is one of like the few books where I'm glad I stuck through it, because even though there were a lot of issues with it that I had, the story itself was worth reading at the very end. Ever since I saw the cover, I'm not gonna lie, ever since I saw that it was coming out, I've been wanting to read it, so I'm glad that I actually finally picked it up and read it. I enjoyed it in the end, and that is what matters. The next book that I'm already a couple of pages in that I decided to pick up, as you heard earlier, is Lost Souls Meet Under a Full Moon, and this is translated from Japanese to English, and this is the same author from Lonely Castle in the Mirror, which I read and loved. And this is actually turning out to be very interesting, very wholesome, just as Lonely Castle in the Mirror was. I think this one is going to be just as cute and wholesome as that one, but deep. From what I've gathered from the first chapter and the first couple of pages from the second chapter. Each chapter, it's its own little story, its own quest, essentially. But a certain series of events are what connects each story. So basically, the main character of each story contacts someone who is called the go-between to set up a meeting to speak to someone who has already died. And that's what they do. The go-between is the mediator, the person who facilitates this meeting and everything like that. I think the last chapters of the book is the story behind our specific go-between, because there are many of them. And from what I've gathered, each story is connected by one specific go-between. So I know I'm going to enjoy this book. I am very slice of life type of reader. And what I really enjoyed by both of these is that I could see the anime playing in my head. But so far I'm enjoying this. I am in chapter 2, which is the second story. So those were my quick reading updates, and I will see you guys in the next one.
You know what it feels to use, but you always really knew. I just long to be with you, and I'm in so deep. You know I'm such a fool for you. You caught me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to? Do you have to let